busy day set up today, not because we planned anything or something, but there's several things that we want to get done today. First of all, we want to get you out in nature for a while, because you've been all in this room for about 2 days now, and I know that yesterday was a pretty heavy day for everybody. It turns out that the second day of this type of seminar is always pretty heavy. Not just because of the information coming in, because we've had quite some interesting information the last 2 days. And I know for some of us it is a little bit scientific or spirit technical, as the word goes, but you will soon discover that that information works, as I was telling Bega downstairs, that it works as a type of activation. So you don't need to understand everything to realize that it is happening to your DNA as well. So if the mind cannot comprehend something, just let it be. You know, it's just a mind. It can just respond to previous input. So when the mind is receiving new input, it takes a while for it to adjust, but the heart immediately knows the truth about that information that has been coming in. We're going to go a little bit deeper into that information today, because I know Akara is really pushing to get all of that information in, and I think he wants to do it because we are now almost entering the last month of that 3-month cycle, if you will remember. Just to update some of you, the 3-month cycle is part of the 9993111 portal. We really need to come up with a better name for that. It's like the winning numbers of the lottery or something. And the winning numbers are 9993111, and the extra number is 1. Do we have a winner?
Bingo!
So we are now nearing the middle of that 9993111 portal, because, as you know, September 27th was a very important date, closed off the original flow of old energy into our planetary and solar system, which is good news, because we want that to end. We want to have the definition around us over and done with, so that we have the opportunity to recreate our reality once more based on the universal love and joy and freedom. So that happened on September 27th, with an actual closing on October 8th actually. But since October we have been going through what you would call the months of peeling. And I don't mean a facial product that you use to peel away old skin, but actually it works the same way. It's like a cosmic peel, where we are asked or invited, or let's say forced, to investigate our old layers that we have put upon ourselves, layer after, where we are forced to look upon ourselves very closely and take away all of those layers that we have called our personality, that we have called our humanity, that we have called, as Ikara and afterwards ourselves have been saying as well, our stories. It's those stories that are going away now, and although that yesterday that seemed like a pretty heavy process as we were talking about it, today I want to invite all of you to focus on the pleasure of peeling. You know, that could be an advertising campaign for L'Oreal, but the pleasure of peeling. Quickly, sell it!
You deserve it. You deserve it.
You're worth it.
You're worth it.
So it's all about that pleasure of peeling, and you know, actually this is a fun process. It is never fun at the beginning, because you know, it's like cleaning up an old apartment. You have all this stuff in there, and every day you come into the apartment and you think, ooh, that's my stuff, that's so very nice, I love my stuff, you know. And then at one point, like I did with my apartment, at a certain point you decide, you know what, the apartment thing is over, we're going to move and we're going to throw everything away. And then you are starting to look, what am I going to keep? You know, what am I going to keep of all this shit, basically? What am I going to keep? And then you start noticing how more and more things that seem to be important end up on the trash. You know, because you think, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with all these things around me? And all of a sudden you realize that all those things that you were holding on to are not so important after all. And I can tell you from personal experience how liberating it is to let go. I mean, Kamaya is in the process of cleaning up the apartment right now. Not mine, but hers, because I no longer have one.
It goes very fast.
It goes very fast, doesn't it? Yeah. And you hold on to those things that are important to you right now. And all the things that are old, just let them go away. The same is happening to our energy bodies. And actually I should say it is the end of our energy bodies because we are returning to the energy body. Singular. One energy body, one connection of all people, all through time and all through space. So that is what is basically happening. And as we are taking away all those layers, it's a little bit funny sometimes, that feeling inside, you know. Nobody knows Elton John these days. But anyway, it is a little bit funny as you have to let go, but it is a good thing to let go, actually. We are letting go right now. And today, I want to focus on the positive aspects of letting go. Because it can be a fun process. Like we saw Annie yesterday going into her divine laughter, and she was sitting there during the Karaya. It was wonderful to see that, how all of a sudden you can just burst open and see what is actually happening to you and the stories that you've been living. And then you can look at that from two different angles. And I've talked to so many people in the course of the last seminars, and all said the same thing. You know, they all recognize that what is happening and what we are talking about is truth. But at the same time it can be, or it can feel like a harsh truth, because you have to let go. Because all those things that you thought were important turn out not to be important at all, you know? And what is really important is something that you are basically rediscovering, because now for the first time you can see it again. That is so special to feel that. So today, let's focus on that. Let's focus on the rediscovery of self, which is a wonderful journey. And not the rediscovery of all the stuff around self. Because the stuff around self is something that we don't need. What we do need is the self, and that's all that we'll ever need. So as we're going through that period of 3 months now, where we are taking away all those layers, where we're peeling away the layers, we are 2/3 almost down the road. We're nearing the end of November. And things are gonna get pretty intense pretty soon. Oh, they're gonna get pretty intense pretty soon. I thought they were already intense, you might think. Well, no. They're not. They're not. It's just gonna get more intense. But also, the pleasure of that intensity is going to increase. I'm sure that in the coming month, in the month of December, we have the ability to focus on the joy of letting go. And keep looking at it that way. Every time you let go of something that you no longer need, feel more space within yourself opening up. More space to allow to be the full you. And that is so important. As you let go of all this shit around you, you find that space within and you allow your own higher self with all those lives attached to it come into your body now. That is what the real ascension process, after all, is all about. At least it's the first step. And then, of course, come January, things are going to change yet again, as the free energy is going to come into the planet completely. And as you know, although the new energy was something that was still coming from the outside, the free energy is something that is coming from the inside out. As Ikara has told us, it's about the neutral neurons in our brain, which are basically based on divinity, so our choices are going to be completely different. The choices that we will be making in the future will automatically be based on positivity, automatically be based on helping, all those things. So feel that within you, feel that process start up pretty soon. As that is going on, it is interesting to look at the old world at what we have done and see that story as finished. So I could ask you actually, if you were to look at your lives right now, and that's probably an exercise that you could do at one point. Now we're not going to do it in the seminar because we don't have time in the coming days to do that, but I'm going to invite you to do it this afternoon. At a certain point we're going to stop a little bit early this afternoon to prepare for what is to come tonight, the first broadcast that we'll be doing and everything. We're going to stop at about 3:30, 4 o'clock maybe today. And in the hour and a half that you have left before the dinner starts, I'm going to invite you to finish the story of your life. So imagine that all of your life has been just a story, and that you are rediscovering that you have been the author of that story, that you have been the writer writing it. Then what is an easy way to get out of that story? Well, to create an ending. You see? It's that simple. So instead of doing the statements at the end of the seminar that we have been doing now for 2 times in a row, we are going to finish our own story this time. And we're going to give you the chance at the last day of the seminar to read that to others. So I invite you just to focus on about 1 page or whatever you want to do. To start writing your story today. And don't go all the way back like I was born and all that, but just focus on the ending. Let's just see where you are and what space that you are in right now, what your life is about right now, outside of these walls, outside of this territory, let's call it a territory, and how you are going to finish that story. Just write about that, just end it. Even though you might not want to act on that ending, you might not want to act it out near the end of our 5 days as you are traveling back home. Just do it here for once. And I don't mean that you have to write your own death. It doesn't have to be that way. You can write about your own ascension. You can write about your own ascension. You can write about the beginning of a new life, how the old life is ending and how the new life is going to begin. And for those of us, because I know there's some here that really don't like to write, for those of us that don't like to write, why don't you just go sit in nature and see it happen around you? Let nature tell you this story. Because I know that Jacques has a lot of interaction with nature lately. You can have the same thing. Just do that. Just sit in nature if that is not the way to go for you to sit somewhere on a desk and write your story. But then find a space in nature. Sit down and let nature tell you the end of your story. I am reminded, although at this point he has chosen to remain in an old energy world and an old energy paradigm, but I'm reminded of Ramtha, who actually used to be pretty close to Akara back then. If you think back, they were living in the same era. Ramtha, however, chose a different path. He began as a warrior, at a certain point saw the light, basically, and decided that because after he was mortally wounded, he was going to die, and he spent about 7 years alone in nature, letting nature finish his story for him. That's basically what he did. He remained there, healing his wounds, but at the same time getting in touch with nature, finishing off his old life and going into his new life. So today, tomorrow, and the day after, I invite you to spend your time finishing your story. Hey, maybe you could even have different endings. It's always interesting to have different endings. And then just to choose one of those endings as you get nearer the end of the seminar. And we'll all give you the chance right at the end of the seminar to come up and to put those stories out there into the world through the camera. And if you like, we can also put your stories on the website later on. So how about we start creating our own ascension story? Let's do that by the end of the seminar. Then at least our entire process is going to turn into a little bit more fun. Because the reason why Ikara and I think Adar yesterday said he doesn't want to hear about the how anymore, is very simple. Because everybody keeps asking, how is it going to be after I do it? Well, you want to find that out? They're not going to tell you. Nobody is going to tell you. But if you finish your own story and you write your own ascension, maybe you'll find that you will be drawn to create the sequel to that. And maybe the sequel to that is not something that you're going to have to write about, but that you're going to have to live about. So let's do that. And use that story every single day when you are feeling back in an old paradigm, just to refresh the choices that you have made and the new life that is there waiting for you. So that's what we'll be doing as we break about 3:30 and we come back at about 6:30, I guess, or 7. Yeah, 7 o'clock, so that we can start up our first broadcast. It's going to be an interesting day. But I want everybody to be reminded today to focus on the pleasure of peeling, the fun of peeling, so that you are no longer stuck what to do next, what to do now. Just do it. Just have some fun doing it. This is about the free energy coming in. It is showing up already in your body, so better as well have fun with it, you know? Okay? Then, as you are going through this process, it might be very interesting to continue the exercises that we have been providing you with. The exercises like, let's call it the wall exercise, because the fellowship is calling it the wall exercise. Becoming the wall. Actually, it's about the infinity angle, changing the infinity angle, going from one finite point of perception, which would be your body and your eyes looking into the world and your senses picking up things around you, the world around you, going from that space into an infinite point of perception. Infinity. All points happening at the same time, coming through your akene. We'll talk more about that today. But actually I want to ask two of our fellowship to come to the front if they'd like, because they have had some very interesting results to tell you about how they handled that type of exercise and what happened to them as they went through it. And there's a very interesting difference going on between Komaya, who actually fell in the trap of the mind as she was trying to go through that infinity angle. And then there's James, who also has his story to tell about how he was dealing with that exercise. So I'd like both of you to come up if you have a minute.
Some of you already heard the story that I told about lying down about 2 days ago before sleeping. And then at a certain moment I was falling asleep and I was invited out of my body. I felt like going out of my body. And I thought, oh yes, that's this portal, that exercise that we have to go through. So I let myself flow out of my body and I went over, turning in circles. But I didn't end anywhere. I didn't find any portal. And I returned after a while back in my body and I thought, okay, I've done it. But I didn't remember anything of portals. And then suddenly, when I looked up, I saw like little ghosts floating above my head and I was chasing them away. It was like a game. I didn't really mind them, I wasn't afraid. And after that, they turned into birds, white birds, that wanted to pick on my eyes. So I started to feel it was not right. So I went under my sheets and I said, well, go away. And then I was looking to my left and I saw Antonia and he was like biting in my hand, but it was not him anymore, it was like a very, very ugly face of something else. So I tried to wake up and I ended up waking up. And then I told the story to Antonia and then I understood it was the mind. So it was a story that I created, in fact, myself, probably because of a kind of fear that still exists in me.
Yeah.
So that I would not probably go through this portal.
Yes. And what was also very interesting as we were talking about it is the fact that when those beings came to take you out of your body, the first reaction that you had is, oh, this must be a Dhammas, or this must be a Kara coming to get me.
It's true.
And if that happens, if anybody of you should go through that, I just want you to know that these types of energies, such as a Dhammas, first of all, they would never come and take you out of your body, because they know that if you are to leave your body, like astral travel or something, like happened a lot in the old energy world, astral travel is just about continuing the same type of story, only this time you are no longer in a body, you are just being a ghost at that point, which is still a unique point of view or a unique perspective. So they would never do that. And although at first they might introduce themselves as being a Dhammas or as being any of the guides that you like to work with, and they might appear very beautiful to you, the only question you have to ask is, why are you here? Why are you here? And if that question can't be answered properly, if it is about, oh, we'll take you places, we'll leave your body behind and take you places, don't answer that call. That's not necessary. It isn't anymore about leaving the body and traveling to other planes of existence. It is about expanding your body to all that is, so you never have to leave it. So you actually shift reality around you and you are not lost in space, basically. And that is very important to realize.
And then when I woke up, because that's the ending, and it's a nice ending, I just started laughing. I didn't feel any fright.
Yeah.
I wasn't fearful. And I understood it was the mind, or a trick of the mind. And I said, well, next time, do a better job. They didn't succeed in making me fearful, so that was a nice thing.
Divine universal human. So thank you for your story. And now just to hear the other side of it, the other way that the infinity angle exercise can go, I'd like to ask James, because he had some interesting experience with it. Because as I remember, James has actually started a training as well. But we haven't actually gotten to the point where we can work really strong together because of time and everything. But for James, one of the most difficult things about this whole process of letting go and stepping into free energy was finding a way to focus, because the world around you was always there and there was so much happening, and at the same time it was diffused, you didn't really know what to do, and then that exercise came. Maybe you should talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. In terms of focus, for me this is absolutely perfect. You may know, it doesn't matter, I have a history of martial arts, and a lot of things that were learned require a lot of practice and training outside of the classroom. So this exercise, I tried it for, must have been about 40 minutes, and I could get the wall to move towards me a little bit, but it wasn't enough.
James?
So in the end, I decided that I really was going to do it, and that was it, and not to give up with it at all. And I found I could get the wall really close. And a couple of times I thought, this can't be right. I must have walked under like one of these bits or something, and I'm actually looking at it. But it wasn't the case. And I found that once I actually got it that close, if I concentrated on my akine and the akine of everything else, it all blended together in front of me, and you could see what you normally see just kind of melts away into just a light space made up of geometric symbols, which looks just like a blank canvas. And at that point you're aware that you can create anything you want out of this geometry. And that's basically as far as I got with it. But the point that's important, I think, is if you learn these techniques, you shouldn't expect to be able to do them straight away without going away and spending your own time and really focusing on them, because that's how I got the results. And here endeth my story.
We have got at the end, it's okay.
So there's a lot of different ways to approach the exercise, and all I can tell you is don't give up. Also, don't see it as an end result, because that it will never be. This is never going to be that type of exercise that is going to teach you everything. It is merely a first step, so to speak. That's all I wanted to say about it. Now, in the meantime, let's look at the process so far. We, in the last few days, and actually in the last few weeks, have we been presenting the Meaning of Life seminars as we've been going through that. There's a lot of information that has come in. A lot of things that we have seen, and it might be a little bit fuzzy for you right now. All I can say, again, is have no fear. You know, one of the reactions, and I want to share it with all of you, that also, sorry?
Trust.
Have trust, yeah. One of the things that also came up with many people about letting go, because we are talking about letting go a lot, and letting go can entail many different things. I want you to be reminded of the fact that you are just holding on in an old energy world. You are just holding on to a very limited amount of energy. That is the stuff around you, that is the people around you, that is the relationships around you, that is the life, basically, that is unfolding around you as you are allowing it to unfold. And you are holding on to that as though it is very important. You see? But actually what you are doing is you are just holding on to a very small piece of the puzzle. Be reminded of the fact that once you decide to let go of the past completely, not in a theoretical or mental way, but completely letting go of the past, and if you let go, it will allow you to embrace everything, including the thing that you were holding on to before. You see? So, letting go is just allowing yourself to open your arms even wider and to grasp everything, to embrace everything that is around you, including those things that you thought were so very important. It's an embrace that is happening. You're just embracing the world as you are recognizing the world and the universe and all that is as your own body. You see? So that is what is happening, and that is where you should focus, where you should put your focus. You really can never lose anything. Nothing. Nothing can ever be lost. All that can be lost, basically, is your freedom. If you step into the power of the mind. And you had already lost your freedom, so this is about regaining something. It's not about losing things. Okay. I just wanted to point these things out before we get going with the rest of the day. We still have about 15 minutes before we are going to take you into nature. About 15 minutes for a short Q&A. Is there anybody who has a question, or is there somebody who wants to know something?
Well,
Yes.
This morning I was sitting on my bed and I tried to focus again. Then all at once my house was there.
Yeah.
And I could step into my house quite easily.
Yeah.
Then I thought, well, on the other side of the road is a farm with some animals for children.
Yeah.
And there's a little horse. And I thought, well, I focus on that horse. And then all at once I was the horse. And I felt the people just putting their hands on me and my tail. I felt very happy, and I was eating the grass. I didn't taste it, but I made a movement to it,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was gone.
Yeah.
So is that the beginning of?
Yes, yes, that is the beginning. And again, I'm going to remind you of the fact that, of course, as you change those angles, you're still just replacing one point of perception with another. But you're not just replacing it, you're not just doing this. And as you know, as you do that exercise, an aspect of your perception still remains in your body. You don't completely leave your body. You stay conscious of this as well. But there is like another part of consciousness is added to it. You see? And the same goes for the horse. So the horse at that point also felt your consciousness. But for a horse, that's a natural thing. A horse has that all the time. A lot of animals have that all the time. That they interact with everything around them. So as you keep doing that, you actually are creating a new pathway. You are creating a new pathway for your own perceptions. You see? So you do it with the horse, and next time you do it with something else, and then
Stones are...
Sorry?
I can't do it with stones at this moment because...
They're so still.
Yes.
Yeah, but that, you know, that's what I say is true. People have difficulty with what they have previously considered inanimate objects, dead objects, basically. Because, you know, if you look at one of the bricks in the wall, in your old life, you would have never considered that brick to be alive. You would have never considered that that brick is like a cell in a body, which would be the building, you see? So that is why it's going to take a little bit more time to do that with every type of object. But an animal is animate. An animal is very close to humanity, very close to your perception. So it's going to be easier, and it has eyes, you see? So maybe you should start with things that have eyes at first. I remember the Lemurian days, and actually I remember a lot of the Wiccan days as well in the Dark Ages, where it was very natural for us, all of us who used to be so close to nature, to just want to see what was happening miles down the road, and just to look up into the sky, find a bird, and to change that infinity angle, and just to look through its eyes to see what was happening down the road. We used that as a very common trick.
I remember something. I lived in the woods.
Yes.
It's a big bird.
Yeah, like an eagle
And
almost.
they always were with the two of them, and they came, and I heard them, and I always stepped out, and I sent them my love, and then they circled 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
So probably I did it already.
Yeah, a part of you did it already.
Yes. Yes, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful. Huh?
Yeah.
And now you're going to take it one step further. Now next time that you are sending your love, don't just send your love, send your consciousness. And you will notice that there's going to be a switch, and you're not going to be completely out of your body, but you're going to add a perception to your own unique point of perception. And yeah, there you go, there you go. And then you start doing it with something else and something else. And what you're creating is a pathway, a new learning curve is building up. And at first it's going to be just you choosing to do that, you choosing to change your perception with something or somebody. And at a certain point, you're going to reach a climax, and your consciousness is just going to burst open. You see? That's why you should do it as many times as you can. Because as you continue to do it, your consciousness at a certain point will just decide, oh, okay, so that's the mode you want to be in. So let's open it up. Let's give you all your sight back again. And all of a sudden you are all things. You see? It can go relatively quickly, that. It can go relatively quickly. You just, thank you, darling. You just need to practice it a lot. You know, it's the same thing James was just telling about the martial arts, and how with martial arts you get an exercise and you just master it, as you say, and then you continue, then you go on. So when we are still in an old energy body, and this is still an old energy body that you're in, you're going to have to create pathways. You're going to have to learn how to do things again. In a free energy world, which is coming up real soon, you're never going to have to learn anything. That is why you are unlearning now. because you are getting to a point where you are remembering everything. I was, this morning, I was reminded of this. Do you remember the linear timeline, right? The beginning of time and the end of time. And then here, the DNA, that is you. And that is actually the universe's DNA. It isn't just your DNA. Every universe has a specific set of DNA, which begins at the end of time and ends at the beginning of time. Now, Nikara was telling us yesterday that as your DNA goes back into time, means that at the beginning of time, which would be the Big Bang, the expansion of our universe, our DNA was fully realized. With fully realized, that means that all the potentials of DNA had already manifested, because DNA works backwards. And that's when the Big Bang happened, because all was there in that moment of DNA. Expansion. And everything got created based on the fully realized set of DNA. What we are doing now, and I'll remind you of this, 144 strands, 2 of them biological, 142 left energetically, 71 are actual energy, and another 71 are actual infinity. You see? Now, as we are stepping through the timeline, we have at the beginning a complete 2 sets of DNA. There is a moment where everything is happening at the same time. That's the moment of the Big Bang, right? So you could say that right at the beginning, at a certain point of time, I'm just going to use a measure here, humanity is working with its 2 strands of DNA alone. Biological life, as the life that we have now lived. And after that, there has been a time where we had the 2 strands plus the 71 energetic ones. We were learning how to work with our energy body again. And then at a certain point, I'm not using the right scale, but it doesn't matter. Then at a certain point, we step from 2 plus 71 energetic ones plus 71 infinite ones. So we have our fully realized set of DNA here yet again. This infinite DNA is the blank state. Remember? The blank state where we have peeled off all of our stories, because as the DNA was going this way, we were creating more and more stories. More and more stories were coming as we were fully implementing everything that we have as DNA. So now we're going to go back to that infinite state where we once again have the ability to be in infinity. Because it's blank. Because DNA at that point is just going to be about potential. What is your potential? How are you going to fill in the gaps? Or, as we have said so long time ago, how are you going to take the clay of passion that is all around you now? And how are you going to shape it right now? That's the blank DNA. That's the openness of all potential. Now, you could say, how could it be then that we are only working with 2 biological strands here, right? I'm going to tell you something now that you're not going to like, probably, because it's going to shift some parts of the information again. Lemuria isn't to be found anywhere on this timeline. Avalon isn't to be found anywhere on this timeline. Any of the old civilizations are not on this timeline. They're happening in different timelines. This then could be Lemuria, Avalon, etc. You see? So, although to us it looked like here we were just working with our 2 strands of DNA, you could say that we had a Lemurian intersection right here. After a while, we got to an Avalonian intersection, etc., etc., etc. Now I'm making this a little bit complex, but just so you know, this is the beginning of our universe. Lemuria is in another universe. Avalon is in another universe. All the other planets, the 11 other planets that we have all been working on to create this liberation, are all in other universes. That means that they are in other timelines. You see? So, our DNA, at the end of all things, when it was fully realized, intersected with Lemurian DNA. And actually, it started to unravel that way. It is the Lemurian connection to this universe which is actually the beginning of this universe. I wanted to inform you about this because it's going to show up later today when Ekara is going to continue his DNA information, or whatever I should call it. Sorry? His teaching, yeah. And I was told about this just a couple of hours ago, so I wanted to share it with you before you jumped into the rest of the teaching again. But anyway, enough said. Let this now work through you. We're not going to let it work through you because of a meditation or whatever, but we're going to invite you to take a walk in nature. And Abika and some of the other people from the fellowship are going to accompany you on that trip. Okay, I'm going to stay here and prepare for the rest of the day.
I have a question.
You still have a question though?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought that the
There you go.
2 strands we only have got left now.
Yes.
But you write them in the beginning and then you go further and further till all the 144
Yes.
are.
I must do something for you then. Look, this point, which is the beginning of time,
Yeah.
is nothing more than another expansion of the universe. You would see, if you take this timeline, I'm going to use blue again because it's going to be easier. If you take this timeline, I'm going to make it smaller, right? So this timeline is this one, with beginning and end. But this is just the expansion of the universe and the incrementation of the universe again. And then it just happens again. And then it just happens again. And then it just happens again. You see, when we speak about the beginning and the end of time, we are just speaking about the breathing in or the breathing out and the breathing in of the universe. So at every time that... Yes, it is also a spiral, actually, yeah. But as that happens, you get a Big Bang. And what you are seeing here, so there is something before this, where we still had that fully realized DNA. Because if you see there's infinity here, so that would mean there's also infinity here. And there is another part to it.
I thought that at the end of the green line was the situation where we were now. But we only have got 2 strands, and that was the confusion.
Ah, yes, no. Well, actually, we are already near the end of this point.
Yes.
We have 2 strands, but science is just not recognizing the 71 energetic strands because they can't see it. You see? And time has the ability, because any breathing in and breathing out of the universe has the ability to not go beyond this point. So this is a possible ending right here, where you don't go into, where you don't add that infinity layer, where you just get stuck basically. Yes?
Can I ask you a question? Can you explain me in your words why there are so many spirals are seen at this moment and have to be created also? Because a lot of shifting is going to take place.
A lot of yeah. Because we are stepping into this, we are stepping into that infinity.
And then these spirals are needed.
Yeah, because we need to go higher, literally. Spirals are always energy about
Layers between the
yes, it's tachyonic photonic energy. Yeah. And you would notice that if you basically look at a spiral from a multidimensional angle, then a spiral isn't just this, then a spiral is about infinity. You see? Then it isn't just doing this, it is doing this. Basically. Or I should say this, actually. It's going up like that. So that is that section here. These then would be, you see, these would be the spirals last time when we made the connection points. This would be a spiral happening right here.
Okay.
You see? Because what would be happening is just from a different angle. So we'll dive deeper into that today, but I just wanted to introduce it before you go out, so that you can have your own integration process with it. Okay? Any more questions before we go out?
I thought in the universe there is no time, and you're always speaking about the timeline.
In the universe there is time. In the 3D universe there is time.
In the 3D universe.
Yes.
But the last part,
Yeah, is infinite.
and that's neutrality.
That's neutrality. Yes,
So
the
there is
infinite.
no time.
Time there is always time in a 3D realm. When matter is present, there will always be time. It is the way you are interacting with time, which is the timelessness. If you are no longer stuck to a 24-hour day, if you are no longer stuck to a interpretation of second after second after second, and if you can just say, I'm going to stop it right here, I'm going to live in this moment for an eternity, before I let it pass, then there is no time in your perception.
mastering time.
Mastering time. Yeah, that's mastering one of the illusions. I've always said at the beginning of these seminars, it's not about deleting time, it's not about deleting space, it's not about deleting form, it is about mastering them. You see? So you are in control again of these things, which are the building blocks of reality in this realm. But in other realms, yes, there is no time. That's why Lemuria lasted for about, you could actually call Lemuria a 200,000 year period. But within those 200,000 years, actually what we did was take a moment of time and stretch that out to a near infinity. A near infinity. It was never complete infinity. But in our perception, it lasted for millions of years. In our perception. Because we had the ability to go deeper within the layers of time. And that is why we could just at certain points stop moments. And the beautiful thing about this is that there was no science behind this at all. It was just a natural process, you see? And we kept creating these layers and layers upon layers upon layers, because every time we had a beautiful moment which was based on universal love or joy or freedom, when it was about Imzaia, time just expanded naturally. And things just slowed down and sped up at the same time, and you went into a deeper layer. That was what was happening as you were changing frequencies, for instance, exchanging frequencies with one another. You would just, your lotus flower of time and space would just open up, and there would be this entirely new pocket of time created to experience your moment in. And you could go deeper and deeper, because time is something that can continue to fold open, you see. And it could fold open so long that you could have an experience with one another that could almost last you 1,000 years. And then at a certain point, the lotus would fold back in on itself, and you would be back at the very same moment where you started. So you would have an actual life, like with two people, let's say. You could have a life of 1,000 years within a Lemurian subspace, and in the end you would end up in the very same moment again, completely and utterly changed, and your frequencies would have shifted. So time was an entirely different concept. Time was something to enjoy, not something to run after, to make sure that you got to a certain point in space. It was such a joy. You see? Yes, Becca. And then Imzaia.
So you put infinity into each moment of time.
Yes, yes. And then it starts folding. And infinity is in each moment of time because it's right here.
Yeah. How is it when in this timeline we
Yes.
have a good time, for instance with someone,
Yeah.
and time is passing very quickly?
That is because of the mind. Mind energy turns all of that around. In a normal state, it would be so that if you have a good time, as you're saying, if you're based on universal love, joy, etc., then time just folds open. But don't forget that most good states or good times with people here in this reality are based on conditionalism. It's usually based on conditional joy. And even those things that we see as spiritual are conditional in most cases. We'll talk about that later on, because, you know, all ego-based thinking, and I'm going to go deeper into that later on, but all ego-based thinking is about suffering. You see, and everybody has their own set of apocalypse. The Christians have their apocalypse, but also the New Agers have their apocalypse. They speak about earth changes. You see, that's also the end of time. That's also the apocalypse. So everything in this world, even the spiritual movement, is conditional. And that is why the mind uses it to speed time up, so you always feel that you're not having enough of it. And then the other things, the negative things, seem to stretch on for days. You see, so it's totally, the world is totally upside down right now. Completely.
So you can have two persons. The one is in the infinity for a moment, and the other is in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So the one can have
Yes.
an infinity experience, one moment,
Mm-hmm.
and the other can have at the same time that
Yes.
time is passing very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the beauty simply increases when you have two people or more, or let's call it two perceptions of reality or more perceptions of reality that balance each other out and are in harmony. Then it just increases the effect. Yeah, you see?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's a normal state. That's why the universe is nearly infinite, even though it is happening within a finite space. And that is the state of 3D, that is the state that 3D is going to be returned to.
So we are going back to a near infinity time like in Lemuria, or are we going further in a totally infinity time?
Both. Both. Here in 3D, which will always continue to exist, it will be a near infinity, but you will also have access to the complete infinity, the absolute infinity. Yeah, so it will both be there. It's about totality, you see, it's about everything, every option available. That's why you need to let go of the limited linear options, so you have every option available again. That's what it's all about. Yes.
Can I ask you are at this moment experiencing it personally?
Me?
Yeah?
Yeah. Always. Yeah. So any more questions before we go out for a walk? Oh yeah, we actually sped up the time experience. Yeah, that was last seminar. Was there for everybody to see. It was a wonderful experiment. Yeah, but it was shut off, was stopped because mind was taking over and was entering into that picture, and we didn't want to see that happen. But it was a nice experiment because all of a sudden we started at 2 o'clock. And we did an Ekaraya, which lasted about an hour, and halfway into the Ekaraya, all of a sudden it was 5:30. So it was a wonderful experiment. Yeah.
Maya spoke about stepping out of the body.
Yeah.
When this night I was feeling very cold. It wasn't not just cold from outside, but inside. Is it so that during the sleep I'm even away from my body, and that is the coldness I feel
Yes.
when I awake? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's no longer a good idea to be away from your body, especially not at this point.
Yeah. Before I was wet through.
Yeah.
In my sleep, I was sweating and I awoke very cold.
Yeah, yeah.
Shivering.
Yeah. Next time before you go to bed, try to anchor yourself. Try to connect yourself fully to the center of your akene, and you will see that things start coming to you as you experience. Okay?
Yesterday you said the body is an illusion.
Yes.
And today I hear the body is important because you have to stay in your body. So is it the perception of the body who is important?
No, what I mean when I say that the body is important is that you need to have a central focus. The body in itself is an illusion indeed. And the way we have been handling the body, we have been working with the body, and the way we have been seeing the body in this society is a complete and utter illusion. But especially, bless you, but especially the infinity which is within the center of the body, that's real. But that's the only aspect of the body that is real. Everything that comes after that builds from that, is just an illusion. But you mustn't neglect your body. That's what I'm saying. You mustn't say, okay, my body is totally unimportant. You see? Especially the state that people are in now. I'm just saying, the state that people are in now, you still need your body. But we are trying to get you away from that need.
Mastering.
Yes, mastering it.
So I was wondering if mastering, you talked about mastering time and space.
Yeah.
Is it mastering all illusions that we do?
Yeah, of course. Mastering all six.
So all things around you, the illusion from our life can stay, if I can say so. But what is important is mastering it.
Yes, that's what I've been saying for days now.
Thank you.
That's what I've been saying for days. That's very important. One more question, then we really have to get you guys out here, because otherwise we're going to turn it into a full morning again. Yeah?
Yesterday you told us that when you are in high vibration, high energy, that it is not possible to create an illness in the body.
Yes.
But I have heard of enlightened people who just created, like Osho, who was a diabetic.
Yes.
So,
see, also Krishnamurti, for instance, after his lectures, used to be sick in his bed for days. You know, he used to present these wonderful lectures, Q&A sessions and everything, and then he had to go home at the end of the lecture and lay in bed for 3 days. This is old energy paradigms taking place. See, if you have this is like fabric, right? Like a piece of cloth. If you say that these are the low vibrations, You have the middle here, and you have the high here. What Kutumi was helping us with when we were still in Hawaii, it was there's this beautiful channel. I think it's right at the beginning of the 4th cycle of 12. It's called "You Are All Vibration," and what he's saying is that the mind is looking at this cloth right here, like all of your vibrations, which is all you. You are the low and the high. What the mind is doing is creating a laser beam, right? A very small laser beam, and it will come in and pinpoint you at a certain point and then you say, oh, I feel very low today because I'm in a low vibration. What consciousness does is it turns that beam into a flashlight. So you're not just seeing this aspect, you're already seeing a bigger aspect. So you're feeling better about yourself. Old teachers like Osho and Krishnamurti and so many others, although they were complete, were forced to live their lives and their bodies in an old energy world. So they couldn't go beyond the flashlight. You see? What we can do now in the free energy world is embody all our vibration at once again. So what awareness does, not consciousness, not mind, but awareness, the I am, is open up, not use a laser beam, not use a flashlight, but use like an entire searchlight, you see? An entire sun, yeah, that's what Kutumi called it. So actually now you are encompassing all things again. If you realize that you are not just this dot, or not just this flashlight, but you are all of these things again. If something is happening here, all you need to do is take some from here and put it there and it's fixed. And then you know you are all of these things.
And that's the heaven on earth principle.
Yes! Yes, it is. Yeah. What?
It's as simple as that.
It's as simple as that.
Everything is as simple.
So anyway, folks, let's give you some air. Just take your time, have some fun, share some stories together, and I want you to be reminded of the ascension story. So maybe as you are walking, start thinking about your ascension story already. Write about your own ascension. But first, fantasize about your own ascension, which is the end of this life. Great. And I'll see you all when you get back here.